Hi, it's Xavier. Welcome to my bonsai retreat and welcome to the second part of this this interesting collection of updates and bits of advice and your questions. And in this second part, we've definitely got another question we're going to deal with. And of course, I also realised I didn't get to show you how these looked in their final form. So we're going to do that. We've also got to have a look, obviously, at my sweet little rabbit. I've only got 2 more days to look at you. How can you get upset when you've got that face looking at you? I know it's not bonsai, but it's still part of the community, isn't it? Should we put you back in your hut so we can do small bonsai for this video? So this one is it's really quite impressive actually, and may not surprise you, but I've actually had these in the pots now for a couple of days. Really, I'm not going to do any particular, but I think the front is probably going to be somewhere in there. And if that's the case, all I need to do, probably just bring a little bit of this back. And as I said, I'm not doing major pruning. You know what I'm like when I say things like that. I want to leave some leaf structure on there. A lot of this is really going to be brought back in the springtime. I have no doubt whatsoever. But can reduce it a little bit. I mean, that's rolled over really nicely, but I might work on that next year. Secured it down using the air hose method, and I think this is definitely going to become a bit of a favourite. I may remove this top bit, but hey, let's see what new buds we get in the spring. This one here is, again, it's going to be an absolutely fantastic tree, and yeah, I need to do some pruning, but I won't do that till spring. I'll let all the leaves fall off. In fact, I may have a little look at this in the autumn time and perhaps do some pruning then. But there is so much potential for this. Absolutely fantastic. And then the third one, yeah, you know, if ever you learn a lesson, and bear in mind I put these air layers on, I think before I did the video about make sure you know what you want from your air layer before you put it on. Yeah, clearly it should have gone on right up here, so we could have done something with this, probably put the air layer on more of an angle like this. That would have worked. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't potentially some character in here. If I get some buds coming from here and get another branch in here, then do you know what, this may well work out all right. But I'll say now, out of 3 bits of material that I'd really not looked at, had no idea what to do with, I whack the air layers on, 2 of the 3, I'm going to have quality trees. I know I am. So with the fantastic results from those Hornbeam air layers, it was just a matter of patience. I think that's the key to bonsai, you know, a lot of the time. Patience and research, of course. So now should we go and have a look and see what I truly think about elderberry as bonsai. Yeah, elderberry. I thought I was going to be able to bonsai them, and I think I've really gone at these for, I think, 3 years ago when I first started this project, because I had these lovely what I call trunks on them, but they are in essence a vine style, so they're hollow, and they keep on pushing out suckers at the bottom. I tried removing them. I've tried the thing of the beginning of spring cutting these all the way back, and it just continually concentrates on one sort of shoot, and I've never been able to develop any sort of ramification. As soon as I've tried to ramify it, it's died off. And I have no doubt that, say like lower down here, I'll get new shoots. Same here, I get a shoot here, or right down at the bottom. But I've never ever been able to build structure or ramify. And I think probably those of you who've dealt with elderberry over a long period of time will recognise that it was never ever going to be a raging success. And I think the best thing I could do with these, put them back in the ground and grow them as elderberry bushes, because you know what? Elderberries are quite good in jam, especially I think with sloes or hawberries. Is it hawberries? Blackthorn, blackberries, one of the 2. So yeah, I'm going to call it quits on the elderberry. So I tried, doesn't work. And that again, that's the excitement and the fun of this hobby. Not everything works, despite what other people may do or say. If it doesn't work in your garden and it doesn't suit what you like doing, then you can actually say, I give up, I stop. Actually, something really odd happened while I tried to move that, and I realised this thing is practically not secured at all. And I thought, well, let's have a look and see what the roots are like. and basically nothing's grown here. There's one small one here, and then there's great big long tufty root here. So you're going to struggle to build a good balanced 360 degree namari with that. I'm going to go and plant that now at the bottom of the garden. So, who wants to know about the oak fusion confusion? That bit of fun I had. And here it is in all its unfettered glory. And truthfully, I'm going to say it now, I'm not a fan of fusion type stuff. I can see the benefits of it in creating triple trunk or twin trunks, but yeah, I mean this was silly anyway, I know it was, but what I did observe is that the trunks in there haven't really fused together yet, and this great big bit of wood in the middle, I'll be honest, it was a joke. And for those of you who wanted some updates on it, I think I will firmly say sometimes I do stuff not with very much seriousness about it, and every now and then it comes off and turns out to be something quite good. But yeah, the oak fusion confusion was a joke. I will actually leave this continually potted up and see whether or not we do get some fusion going on down there. But yeah, this great big stick in the middle, probably better if I take the stick out actually and stuff some more trees in there. But actually, while we're talking about jokes, and sometimes I can seem to do extreme stuff, and again, I'll say again, this is my channel, this is my journey, this is my therapy for stuff that happened to me in the past and how I've dealt with it. And again, I've always said, bonsai community, it's you guys who've actually kept me going, and we'll suffer different crosses through life, and this has helped me with mine. So sometimes you'll see something on the channel and you think, that's not right, you shouldn't do it that way. I'll say now, although I may give guidance on how I do stuff, I'm certainly not qualified to instruct you. I've got 25 years of experience, I know how things work in my garden, and I'm just sharing that experience with you. If you choose to follow it, that's down to you, and generally, what I say works out all right. But I did have somebody made a comment about the olives, and the fact that actually, what is this, I think it says, what is this temptation we have to try and cut all these olives right back to their stumps and try and regrow them. And I'll say now, I don't actually have a vast experience with olive, and that was another one of those experiments. I had the opportunity to get 3 olives, and when I looked at them, and in the first video, you'll see the video, it's right there, I quickly discovered that the orientation of a lot of the secondary or primary branches was absolutely wrong if I was going to produce the sort of bonsai that I wanted. And you know what? On one of them, where we discovered the wild olives, that actually died right off. And to be fair, that one did look like it was going to be a really nice, nice olive. But the whole tree itself, the graft, died. But as a result of that, what I found was much better. I got those lovely small wild olive leaves, and yeah, it's going to take me another 5, 6, 7 years to try and rebuild that into something I like. But hey, that's part of the fun and the journey. In terms of the other 2, one will be a success, one I think is going to struggle to get past the problems it had again with the initial structure. And the only thing I'll say to you for that is that's why it's so important to concentrate and spend your efforts in those first couple of years with a tree, especially if it's a younger tree. Don't let it get away from you, otherwise you're going to have some problematic faults that will leave you very few options if you want to try and develop it as a bonsai per se. Oh, I suppose we ought to go. I've just thought of something else that I think hasn't featured at all this year. Should we have a look at my Chinese elm? And again, people who are watching my channel in 2022, 2023 will certainly remember this, and certainly remember the carving I did on this. And I made a great big totem pole with what I called the gonzo nose at the top. It was all light-hearted. In my head, I knew I never really had much intention of keeping any of this. I was going to cut it right back, because originally, Candace of Bonsai Science, who's no longer doing the channel, suggested this would make an absolutely fantastic semi-cascade with the movement in the trunk, and then we've got these lower dropping branches, and the decision really was whether I keep both or indeed just stick with one. And honestly, I couldn't make the decision, and this year I was going to take all that off, but I did do a little bit where I actually did a video where I wired these out, and I was going to see whether we were going to get loads of vigorous growth and potentially regrow it. And I mean, I've got a few places where I've got shoot extensions, just a little bit there, a couple of centimetres, perhaps here, a little bit here, a few here, but nothing that's like really vigorous. And with that in mind, I decided to leave it and do nothing with it, let it continue to grow. If it needs to be putting out big, strong shoots. So I thought, you know what, it's an excuse to get my Dremel out, we'll do a bit more work on this. And then I was reminded of a few comments that people have made, is just don't just do stuff for the sake of it. And in this instance, I agree with them. So I was going to leave it for growth to come on here, continue to feed it. And I thought I didn't like how those shoots were going out. So I had a bit of a play and a bit of experiment. And again, there's nothing wrong with experimenting if you've got a pretty decent backup. And the decent backup for me is removing that whole section there. So I wired these almost vertically with a view that I wanted to create a framework so potentially I could have more branches coming out and around and create this false trunk. So we'll have this going upwards, as we will here have this going upwards, but maybe what I'll be able to do is to get growth coming out from these side branches and from here, which is what's happening on these. I could then potentially cut the upper sections and so create a very interesting and unique Chinese elm tree. Look, I have no idea how it's going to work out, but part of me thinks it could still work out. But I do this with the knowledge that if it doesn't, I can just cut right back. So again, I do like to experiment, I do like to test the boundaries, and no, this doesn't fit into any form of classical bonsai, but when you walk into the bonsai retreat, sometimes the best thing about it is you go, wow, that's unique, and you look at it and stare at it and try and understand it. A bit like modern art. Maybe this is the modern art of bonsai, who knows. So, do we want to go and have a look and see 3 more air layers, because these were also experiments and I'm very intrigued to find out whether or not they've worked. Now what we've got in front of us is one of 2 beeches that this year I put an air layer on, and the reason why I did it is because, well, actually I laid it out properly when I actually did the air layer video, which you'll find again in the description. But in essence, I had a lovely tree up here, great big long length, and then I had these horrible roots, which for me was never ever going to work as a bonsai. Now I'd heard that traditionally beech were really difficult to air layer, and in fact when you saw the video you'll notice that the actual structure of the cambium was really weird. I've taken the foil off, and I think already we can see, looking at it, there is no obvious sign of any big roots coming through. Now I could take this off, have a proper look and reopen the cambium up, or I could decide to recover it and do exactly what I've just done with the 3 you've just seen and leave it for another year. I'm actually going to do that. So I'm just going to get my tin foil, recover it and put it down the bottom of the garden, feed it well and see what happens next year. I really would like this one to work because I think this would be a beautiful tree. Even if there's micro roots in there, probably best not to disturb them. Nothing lost by waiting. Certainly have a look at it next spring. And unfortunately had a look on the second one, and again no signs of roots. Did have a little look at the top, and I can just see those sort of micro white protrusions, which suggest it's just taking a little bit longer, and we may well get some roots over, well, the second half, autumn maybe, and it could be up for separation sometime next year. So that really only leaves us 2 more things to do. One of them involves the buddleia, which you saw at the beginning, and I really think we need to have a look and see if Ginkgo Airlayer in the bonsai retreat, because I owe that to Adam after all. Yeah, all I'm going to do with the buddleia is cut these old flowers off, and again with these I find that although we could argue that we're quite late in the year, they continue to flush quite a lot. And I mean, when you talk about it showing where the new buds are here and here, you can already see the little buds are going to come out all over there. So this will bud again, I know it will. Got something down here. I'm going to remove stuff which I know I don't want. but probably not be as hard as I might have been earlier in the year. Just get rid of diseased and horrible stuff, but I want to keep some growth on there. And pull some of these ones back, and it is continually shown that the buddleia most definitely likes to bud. Okay. So I think that's actually looking pretty good, and yeah, I could do some more shortening of that, but I actually want to keep a bit more growth. I think last time that's probably my biggest thing I learned. Don't take too much off per hatch in one go, but yeah, potentially coming on well. Probably just remove a few knobs and stuff. So that's the buddleia, and yeah, it continues to surprise me, and it hangs in. Lovely, lovely trunk movement. And that's what you can find in your garden sometimes. You just have to persevere and see if you can make it live. But much better than the elderberry, that's for sure. So actually, before we go and have a look at the Ginkgo, I did mention at the beginning of this episode, which as you know comprises 2 videos, the big failure I had with this spruce, this Christmas tree, which I cut up, I think it was 2 years ago now, and there's a video all about it, a bit of fun. And I'll tell you right now, I know for a fact I cut it, hacked it, took the roots apart, and probably did it all at the wrong time of the year, and I said so at the time. Well, actually, you're having an update on this for a while, because I thought I was going to be showing you a successful time lapse, because if we ever look back, you'll see that I actually had some pretty interesting results showing on this in 2024. I could say it responded better, but there is sign of life. Not on earth sure what I'm going to do with it, but let's get in close and show you what I mean. The rest of the tree has absolutely nothing promising to show, but right at the apex here, got a bud that's come up and nice and green and fleshy. Here, got another bud there, and you probably can't see it, but I'm not going to move the camera, but just down here, there's also another bud that's come from just here. So, you know, I may get something up here, and I think potentially, we'll wait and see if anything backbirds lower down. So definitely nothing to scream about, and it may be that I end up removing or ginning all the branches down here, but to be fair, a lot of this foliage is still green, so I have very little experience with Picea. Let's see what happens. Well, clearly a year later, as you can see from the growth at the top here, all of that promising stuff never really materialised. It could well have been that I could have shown a bit more interest and perhaps I would have got some better results. In the end, I think what I'm going to have to do is remove all the wire, but you know, we have to acknowledge that I have at least managed to grow what I think is going to be some very spectacular grass. Not sure where I'm going to use it, but I think I'm going to pull that out, and that may even work. Well, will it? Will it work in my Fangorn forest? Could do, I think. Anyway, you'll have to hang around for the spring of 2026 to see what I do with that incredible slab, my Bonsai Ents and Fangorn forest. But yeah, spruce, combination of I really wasn't interested in the species, I did it all at the wrong time, and I did an awful lot to the tree in one go. So that's 3 big no-nos. And we know there are some bonsai no-nos we shouldn't ignore. So that really just brings us to this Ginkgo, and as you saw in a much earlier video, we've got 2 very, very different leaf colours here. One's a lovely vibrant green down here low, and up here above the Airlayer side, definitely looking very, very yellow. And honestly, I said at the time, I really don't care whether this worked, but I am intrigued. I know that when Adam said that he did his Airlayer on Ginkgos, when he first took the layer off, I think last year, he noticed there were just some micro tips. So I'm getting the impression, bear in mind, this is a prehistoric-y sort of species. It has a different sort of slower response to cuts and wound healing. In fact, it is terrible at wound healing. That suggests it may take a while for roots to form. Let's get in close and have a look and see whether or not we've got roots after 3 months. Now, this is definitely very, very wet. I'm not sure whether I've got a root there. If I get a root, that's unexpected. So share the excitement or the disappointment with me, why not? Wow. Okay, are we ready? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, we have ginkgo root. I'll tell you how, look at that. Well, I'll tell you how expected that was. I haven't even got any of the stuff ready for potting. I was convinced this had failed, and I'll tell you now, I had a peek 4 weeks ago and it was just a sodden mass of moss. So I'd given it a good squeeze, it moved about a lot. I'll tell you what, I think a lot of those roots grew in the last 4 weeks. But hey Adam, ginkgo, big thumbs up. Tell you what, we've seen separation removal and all that. Let me get that a pot, and I think that part is going to make a really good tree. I mean, maybe I'll show you a little bit, because wow, look, those lovely white tips. And when we see white growing tips, you need to be careful. But these, in fact, the white tips snapped on that, so I'm not going to take too much more off. I'll just take a little bit off the top to make it easier to pot. Look, we've got tips here. Yeah, that'll do, he says, trying to pull a bit more. Okay, let's get this into a pot. So honestly, you can see why I'm so over the moon with that, Adam. Hey, thanks very much. And the roots on that were massive. So I think we're actually going to have a really interesting ginkgo here. And actually, when I look here, some of these newer shoots that have come out are actually quite green. So I think we'll lose those and we'll set buds for next year. What is strange about this one, of course, is the way I've taken it. It's got a much more traditional informal upright form, which we definitely don't associate, or we find difficult to achieve normal with a ginkgo. And as for the remaining part, which is actually where I really saw potentially going to be the tree, look, I can't hide it. We've still got two very parallel branches there. Always going to be a problem, but I think we're going to achieve something quite interesting, because if we look down lower on this, we've actually got buds coming quite low on this, which is going to give me quite a number of options in the future once I've allowed it to strengthen. And I think that's the key with this. I actually want it to strengthen. I can do a few things straight away. This great big thing here, we're going to cut that off, and I fully expect that to die all the way back to the base there. I'm going to give it a good inch or so for that die back, and that's based on something that Ryan Neal said from Bonsai Mirai. We've got a little area here which I can definitely shorten off, and because of the way ginkgo reacts to sort of pruning like that, I'm going to put some definite cut paste on there and have a look and see what we get from these. But yeah, I think this will be interesting. It may well be that what I'll do is I need to get a bit of asymmetry, asymmetric, whatever to it. That's very straight, but here, if we ignore this, we're going to have that going off to the right, straight on, potentially something behind it. If I then cut this off even lower, so we'll have a bud here, then we're barely going to recognise that these are two very parallel, because that'll be all the way down here. And looking, there may even be a bud right here. I think we're going to get one lower down here. So that's a big thumbs up for the ginkgo experiment, and I definitely say they airlayer with ease, because that one was actually very, very damp. Which means, for all my moaning about how poor and appalling my airlayer process has been, in reality this year it's been an absolute raging success. And what you're seeing there is one of 4 successful airlayers I took off that Itoigawa juniper. The reason why we haven't spoken about it is because that is definitely part of a much bigger year-on time-lapse project. So the only 2 that we haven't seen results from actually is the Beech, and truthfully I expected those to be on for more than a year, and I'm quietly confident that this time next year there'll be roots in those Beech. Which really leaves us to just 2 I've brought up here, because even at this time of the year, despite me telling you I very rarely, if not never, prune beyond the end of July, early August, sometimes when I'm pottering about, I see stuff that you can blatantly do something about. And in this instance, we've got this this terrible looking oak. I picked it up from my usual place about 4 or 5 years ago, hoping that I'd be able to grow something from here. That all died, but we've got some lovely shoots here. So what I am going to just do is cut the dead bit off. Yeah, so who knows? Future tree, maybe a bit of wire on this in the winter. Probably do that right now, actually. Make sure we bend it the right way. I want to get a nice extreme bend on there. I find when I don't know what I'm doing with stuff and what the future of it's going to be, I normally assume it's going to be something that gets cut back really quite low. And someone actually asked me, why do I do so much wire if I know I'm probably going to eventually cut it all off? And the answer is at the time I often don't necessarily realise that. But I've just put a nice little S bend in this, and who knows what we'll get from that. That's going to be on the inside of the bed no matter what. So I can remove that now. There we go. And that's on the inside of the bend, so we'll remove that. But I may well end up cutting it lower, but at least that's giving it some chance. And I think when I do things like this, I'm at the stage where the tree was an absolute write-off. It wasn't doing what I wanted to do, and this is me looking at potentially salvaging something. Now, I'll actually leave this for a couple of years down the bottom of the garden. Yeah, so getting back to the issue about wire, I'll often put more on than I actually need, because at the time I'm not 100% sure that I don't actually want all that up here, whereas eventually you may realise actually I'll cut it all off. But second-hand wire, got loads of bends in it already, I'm not that bothered. That could turn out to be a quite good tree. And the final one I picked up, and again, it's brilliant, you know, someone says to me, why do I want so many trees? It's because sometimes I walk around and I see something and I go, oh, this is really starting to develop. And again, those of you who follow this channel will know this has popped up a few times, and you look at it and think, gosh, I mean, even I know it's much better than it was, but there's something glaringly obvious I want to do, and I'm not even going to go into detail and talk about it. I'm just going to do it right here. I don't want any of that stuff, so that we've got this interesting movement and stuff going on. And someone will shout out there and say, I thought you said you don't do any pruning this late in the year. And I said, well, you know what, sometimes I will, but that's going to be absolutely fine. I suppose the truth is, if I'd known I was going to be removing that branch, I would have done it in the spring, and then we'd got this lovely amount of healing down here, and by now I could have been taking it even lower down. But sometimes you sort of see things and you think, might as well take it off now. It's not going to harm the tree in any way. So, you know, it's like a lot of the bonsai sort of processes. The more experienced you get, the happier you are with doing things. You know what sort of things you need to protect and guard against. Anyway, there we go. And it may not surprise you that I actually potentially see the future of the tree a lot lower down. The thickness of the trunk, although that is tapering nicely. In fact, you can see the move that has to happen next is probably that move. There we go. And I'd imagine then the next cut will be this one here, but I won't do that now. So, in fact, let's have a look at this and revisit this right through 2026, and actually have a look and see whether doing the cut this late in the year has any particular detrimental effect. I'm pretty sure it won't, but shall I let you in another secret? The real tree, coming close and I'll show you, is actually right down here. I think I'm going to be cutting off 3/4 of this. But this really does typify, those last two that you've just seen, typifies why I love bonsai so much. You just don't know what's coming next. So I think that really draws things to a close in terms of sort of the generalised pruning and work we do in the sort of late summer, really moving towards the autumn. I may well still wander around and pick at things, but that's really me done for pruning the deciduous and stuff like that, because we have definitely reached that point where the reality is there isn't going to be any time or opportunity for a further flush to develop, so all that energy gets wasted. Keep the foliage on there now and use it to gain more energy down into the roots. And yes, you can see it. The privet stump, one of 3, is in front of me, and I promised it was going to come up. It's actually come up a month later. I may not do that much pruning, although again I can definitely do some pruning to profile, and with a privet and certain other evergreens you can often get away with this. It's a bit like hedging. Well actually it is hedging, so we are going to get more buds and everything from it, but I can clean up lots of stuff. So though I won't be going nuts on the pruning with a privet, I most definitely are going to have a little play with my new Dremel, which I got at Christmas time. So lots of work to be done on the stump, this one, the other one, and really bring it back to profile, I think. I'm happy that I did so much work last year that I'm quite happy to let this grow out, gain energy and everything and vigour. This is turning out really nicely, and hey, you can't help but admire the work that Gary did on making these lovely Lord of the Ring inspired, well, I thought they were bookmarks, but they're going to form part of the Ent Forest in 2026. That should be fun. Anyway, if you want to see a great video about privets, that's definitely the video to watch. Otherwise, happy bonsaiing, God bless, cheers.